Time to preview the Houston game. We're going to dive into that with a special guest here on the Prime Time for College Football, a Hog Media production presented by Sleeper. I'm your host, Jay. Thanks for pulling up here on the YouTube channel and listening. Wherever podcasts are downloaded and listened to while you're here, please wipe your feet, like, subscribe, rate, review, and give us 5 stars. We got a fun one for you all today. I got my guy Parker Ainsworth from Locked on Cougs. We're going to preview the Buffs and the Cougars for Friday night's game. So get a little into it, talk about what we expect to see. So here you go. Thank y'all for pulling up to the Prime Time for College Football. I got a special guest. Got my guy Parker Ainsworth over there from Locked on Cougs, Houston Cougars. Parker, how's it going, my man?
We're doing all right, man. Big 12 football's kicking off. It's hard to complain right now.
Yeah, we're starting to get a conference play, and I think that's kind of that's the perfect place to start in this conversation because conference play is starting. Houston is coming in this year with some high hopes and expectations, similar to even with Colorado. Now, Houston right now, 2-0, starting the season off strong. I like how, knocking off SF Austin as well as Rice. So you got a lot of inner city battles there. Of course, you never lose to food. That's one big rule that I've always heard from people. So talk to me about, let's start off here. We'll lead off with the offense. We'll talk some defense on both teams. And then we'll dive right into this injury report. That's the new thing in the Big 12. Everybody's got to send in their injury reports. I've seen other conferences doing it as well. But Connor Weigman transfers in to Houston, and he doesn't look too bad. Talk to me. How's the feels around Connor Weigman running things at quarterback?
He looks like he's starting to get more comfortable over the course of the first couple games. Obviously, was the 5-star all everything out of high school and was supposed to save it, right? That was the big thing. And instead, he's returned home. He's from Houston originally, for folks maybe on the Buffs channel that don't know, but he's from Houston originally, went to Bridgeland High School, and he's coming home to turn the program around now in Houston. And I think he's just still getting used to, he's healthy and he played the last couple of years hurt and all that. He's trying to get used to it. He doesn't have like crazy stats, especially considering he's played in FCS in a group of 6 school. But he certainly like has a little more wiggle, I think, than people thought he did when he was, running around and stuff like that. And he hadn't thrown the ball away yet to the wrong team. And those kind of things I think are all net positives. Jay, you probably, you follow the whole sport, so I'm going to tell you anything you don't know. There was no passing game at Houston the last 2 years. That there's any at all, I think, is something that people are really like, okay, we can do this now. Like, this is okay.
Yeah, going through the 2 coaches, right? You got get your new coach is his second year there, and the year before was Dana Holgerson, right? Was the coach before, and that was when it was not. It never returned back to the Tom Herman era there at Houston at all. But speaking of Weigman from Houston, is Cypress, does that count as Houston?
We're counting it. Yeah, we count it.
But no, back to the Dana Holgerson. Things weren't, we haven't got back to the Tom Herman era. But what about Willie Fritz? I like him as a coach. I've liked him when he was at Tulane. I've always felt like there's a lot of potential I liked his style. And now it does feel like he does have a quarterback finally. Like you said, there was no passing game last year. I remember seeing Donovan Smith because they played Oklahoma, which, as those know, I also run an Oklahoma channel. And watching him play, I'm just like, yeah, he's just not it.
Yeah, we don't have to belabor that game. It was 12-16. There was no offense on either side of the field that one. But Fritz is a great coach for schools that are building a program. He's good for winning a game or two you're not supposed to. Last year, that was TCU and Kansas State. Both games against teams that were in the top half of the Big 12 that Houston probably had no business beating in a talent-to-talent perspective that they ended up knocking off. And so you're hoping to get a couple of those on the calendar this year as well. He did that at Tulane. Famously beat USC in the Cotton Bowl, or whatever. But he did that at Sam. He did that at Blinn. He's kind of done it at every level. And so now he's in the Power 4 conference, Big 12. We're hoping to be the place he does it at the highest level. And frankly, returns have been good so far. 18 months into a rebuild, I don't have a whole lot of complaints. I'm feeling all right about it.
So I'm assuming you all are feeling like the trajectory is going the right direction. I guess that's probably the way that we can look at it, right?
Yeah, so you've got obviously you mentioned Weidman came in this year. You brought in a handful of offensive line transfers, stuff like that. They've got, and especially for Houston, like it's the best in school history class in 2026. You're open to kind of use them as the turning point for the university and program, and I think things feel like they're moving in that direction. Obviously, Colorado has had its own ups and downs, right? You had a Heisman Trophy winner, and it's hard to replace those. Those don't just exactly happen all of a sudden. But I weirdly feel like that means, Jay, that these kind of they end up at the same place, right? Colorado's coming kind of back down to earth, and Houston's trying to move their way up, and that makes this a fun football game.
No, I totally agree because I think that's the one thing with the Buffs, especially when talking about the offense. You lose out, like I said, the Heisman Trophy winner. Coach Prime comes in basically with a built-in quarterback. Not theoretically, like literally, he comes in with a quarterback that he's been coaching for like 6-7 years. So you've got to see the progressions of him, and he's talented because he's has the ability to carry teams. He's done it before, and so yeah, now this year it's a start over. And so the bigger question for Colorado has been is, can Coach Prime do it again? Like, was he made by his kids and the people he brought with him, with the Louis that he brought with him? Because he said he was bringing his luggage and it was all Louis. So now that Louis has moved on to its next direction, the question has been fully is, can Prime do it again? And so now we're seeing kind of a little bit of a controversy. ESPN reported that Ryan Staub is going to be the starting quarterback for Colorado, and they've seen that he has been taking the first team reps. Mm-hmm. And Prime kind of refutes it in the presser and or whatnot, and so it's like, well, we don't know. And so I guess for him it's definitely gamesmanship going into this, because you kind of don't want to show your cards, right? But when you talk about Houston, I mean, we'll kind of dive just a smidget into the injury report, but we'll go through it a little bit more in detail in a minute. But you all are dealing with some y'all got enough running backs to play this week?
It's funny because I would have told you in like early August, like, oh yeah, that's a strength. They've got like 3 or 4 guys that can really play, and now they've got 1 or 2 guys that are really healthy, and that's just the way that goes, right? Rashawn, for the folks, the Buffs folks, Rashawn Stanford was probably going to be the starter, if not split carries with Dean Connors. Stanford goes out with a knee injury, done for the year at the end of camp, so pretty brutal timing there. Jamarian Burnett goes by Fat. He's kind of the big bruiser type, and he's also listed as out this week. Injury there that they say he'll come back from, but he's missed. It'll be a second game in a row. So you're down to Dean Connors, who it's funny. I think Jay. I think they say it's deceptively athletic is what they call it when Dean Connors runs the football.
Deceptive speed, the lunch pail.
Looks like Cam Scatabo, but runs a lot differently. So I think there's some of those kinds of things there. But he's a fun running back. He got the job and transferred to Houston from Rice across town after having killed it there. And he was hoping to kind of split carries and be a 10 to 12 carry game kind of guy. And now he's like, yeah, we're probably getting closer to 18, right? Just because that's the way things go with a couple guys down. So it did shift Houston some. I don't know early enough in the year enough of these Colorado guys, but you tell me that there's some of these linemen. I mean, they got a handful of linemen out at Colorado, right? That read's not great.
Yeah, it's not like you got Philip Houston that's going down. That's out right now, right? You got Philip Houston who's listed as out. You've got Kareem Hardison as well as Walker Anderson is doubtful, but they weren't expected to play in this game whatsoever. So luckily for the Buffs, I mean, losing one. Philip Houston was one that I was thinking was going to find a way to fight his way towards the starting lineup at some point, but he's not one of the, I guess you could say, 5 that took the most snaps over the last few games. You're dealing with Larry Johnson, with Zylon Chrysler, Zaria McGill, as well as Xavier Hill and Jordan Seaton, the former 5-star. So they've got their 5 guys, of course, transfers that they are very, very happy with on the line. And the line looks really good for Colorado. I think the intriguing game going into intriguing thing going into this game, Parker, for me has been the Buffs blocking has been actually pretty good. They blocked very well against Georgia Tech, which that's been like the biggest like kryptonite deal, I guess you could say, for Colorado for the last first couple of years, giving up the most sacks in college football, or at least at the tops of giving up the most. And that was one thing that they've been trying to figure out. And I think this year they've got it figured out for the most part. They're able to block. The run game is a little bit better. I mean, from between Michael Welch and Simeon Price, even though Price is on that injured list as well, he's in the questionable mark. Him and Dallin Hayden, so that kind of hurt some things. But you still got Welch, and I think that will in the end work itself out. But yeah, the Buffs having a better blocking on the pass to me is super intriguing. But I guess for Houston, you got 2 more wide receivers out as well, and actually it was 4 wide receivers on the injured list. I mean, did y'all beat each other up in practice? Like, what's going on?
It's a pretty physical program. I will say, of the 4 wide receivers down, the only one I would have relied on to catch passes in a competitive conference game would have been Devin Williams, and he's listed as probable. And so, not that you want anyone hurt, but I'll call that lucky. There. Dalton Merriman's also listed as probable. I should point out he started both games at right tackle. And so of the guys that aren't running backs, like we've mentioned, he's probably at the most snaps, and he's listed as probable, so I bet he tries to go.
Yeah.
But that was one that I don't think people saw coming when it came out on Tuesday, because he finished the game on Saturday. Why would you, right?
That's true. That is true. He finished the game. He played. So, yeah. But the thing is you still got to put out there in the actual report what it looks like. To me, right now, we're in gamesmanship. When you get to doubtful to probable, for me, I feel like it's gamesmanship. We won't know until actually Thursday, late Thursday, probably early Friday, who's actually out and who's going to end up playing. And I think at that point, when you get to probable on Friday, you're most likely going to play. So shout out to our partners over there at Sleeper. Think you know football? Think you know sports in general? Well, hey, try your football knowledge up against others and turn that into real money on the Sleeper app, the ultimate fantasy sports app that can turn game day into payday. Just download the app, use our promo code PRIME on your first deposit, get up to 100% match up to $100, and pick more or less on your favorite players with more than any other daily fantasy app. So you just pick 2 or more of your favorite players from pregame or live, pick their stats more or less, and you can win up to 1,000 times your money if your pick wins. So use our promo code PRIMETIME, and you will get a match of up to $100 on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See the Sleeper terms of use for details. We're talking here with Parker from Locked On Cougs. Thank you all for pulling up. Hit the like and subscribe button on all channels. But Parker, let's talk about that defense that Houston has right now. So I was pulling up some stats or whatnot. Defensively, 4th in FBS and in overall yards per game right now. 3rd in passing at 78 yards a game. So it looks like the secondary is strong. It feels like Willie Fritz is putting together something tough. Run defense is okay, 108 yards per game, 54th. I mean, it's only the first couple games of the season. To me, all this stuff balances itself out usually around the 4th or 5th game, but scoring defense is good. So basically, Houston has done what they were supposed to do against the opponents that were placed in front of them. How do you feel about the defense prepping for this next game?
I think done what they're supposed to is a really good way to put it, because it's kind of the thing that ultimately, one of the handful of things that got Holgorsen out of there a couple years ago was that they didn't beat Rice. They didn't win the games they were supposed to, right? And it was kind of the black mark on the resume, so to speak. Now they've gone out and they shut out Stephen F. Austin. They only gave up 9 points to Rice, which runs a really unique. They call it the gun option, but it feels like a triple option-y kind of thing. They just run out of the shotgun. I like the DBs a lot, though. You alluded to it. Mark Stampley's a transfer in. He got a pick earlier this year. He's pretty strong. Latrell McCutcheon, he was a Lincoln Riley guy at Oklahoma,
Yes,
went
he
to
was.
USC, and then came to Houston to play with his brother, who's a pass rusher. I'm sure we'll mention at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Jordan Allen has some LSU in his background. Will James made a couple plays against Rice the other day. I mean, they've got some fun guys back there, and I'm still learning a lot about Austin Armstrong, the DC. He's new, came from Florida, but he's moving around a lot. I don't know how much X's and O's you typically get into on this one, but like line up in 3, flip to 2, all kinds of different stuff, and it's really interesting to do that this early in the year. To me, like you only had so many practices. What do you even? we are still practicing tackling, right? How much time you got?
No, it's a good point. There's a lot of movement that happens with a Willie Fritz team just in general. So I totally can understand that. But yeah, that's intriguing that, like, as you mentioned, just how much moving around from 3 to 2. Like, how do you think that will work out long term? Was that something that they did last season as well?
So last year with Shieldwood, they did a lot more one high and keep one safety down near the box. And
Mm-hmm.
frankly, with AJ Halsey, who's no longer a Houston Cougar, he's an LSU Tiger.
Yep.
He frankly had a lot. He was, I don't want to say Troy Polamalu because that's an All Pro Hall of Fame guy, but he had that kind of like instinct where he could end up at the box but still make a pick 20 yards downfield because he made the right read on it, right? And so you've got to shift things when you lose that guy. You also change defensive coordinators. So I assume that there will be more complex stuff as the year goes on, but I was surprised against Stephen F. Austin to see some of the movement they were doing in the back half because I was like, it's week 1, guys. Like, let's just
Yeah.
practice base.
Yeah. That to me is could be considered a little concerning. And I only say that because you don't want to put too much tape out there.
Right.
Like, as the Buffs played against Georgia Tech, no, they needed to bring the full arsenal out there. The goal was to win that game. So you need to play everything you can. And there was some struggle there. You know, the run defense gave up 300 yards. And this does not look like the same defense that Robert Livingston had last year. You know, last season's defense was top 40 in a lot of statistics. They did very well overall, but you also lost a lot of key pieces. You replaced, a lot of your defensive linemen. You replaced players in the secondary. So you had a lot of things shifting. So now the question has been for the Buffs is, can they get themselves back up? They got some good transfers in, actually a lot of transfers. That's kind of the one thing that Coach Prime has done a lot of, is he lives in that portal a lot more than he does on the recruiting trail, which, truth be told, I get it for some teams. I think some teams, it's bringing in players that have been humbled sometimes makes it a little bit easier on your job. If the question is, how many head cases do you run into? And I wonder how many of those Primes have dealt with, while at the same time, Prime is also bringing in, former former NFL players, Hall of Famers, that a lot of these kids and their parents know. So it's like, look, he's got a go jacket. Like, you gonna listen to him or not? Like, either you're for real about playing football and gonna listen to a go jacket, or you're not, and we obviously need to go ahead and part ways. But no, it's not the same. The Delaware game was, you could tell that they weren't trying to do a lot too. That one to me is kind of what I would have expected from Houston. But as you mentioned, they looked like they were getting more complex. Why?
Well,
Why don't we just go to the basic stuff and just dominate them? Because you should be able to just dominate them.
Well, and to be fair, I mean, against defensively, they did. Offense took a while to heat up a little bit, but they got it going eventually. Again, first game, I said on the Locked On Cougs channel, there are no preseason games in college football, right? Like, this is your chance to warm up. You don't get a 3-quarter dress rehearsal like you do in week -2 of an NFL season. I do look at, though, what Houston did defensively as like, okay, either, like you're saying, this is a sign of like, we have to do complex stuff, or like that the rap on Austin Armstrong was kind of, he's a nerd, and like he like really, has all this like, super genius wonderkind. He's not very old, kind of stuff going, and like maybe it's just going to progress. Maybe it's just going to be crazy by week 12 or something that I don't, hadn't seen before. When you think of Houston, you think of Case Keenum, Greg Ward, Andre. You think of offense and quarterbacks and this high-powered motor of a machine. And this has kind of been the inverse under Fritz, where it's like a defensive-led, gutted-out, gritty team, which is taken some adjustment by the fan base, but between you and me, is kind of fun.
Yeah.
It can be a lot of fun to win those kind of grimy games sometimes, and so it's been a little different. You mentioned though gamesmanship. I totally assumed when I heard it was gonna be 2 drives for Caden Salter, 2 drives for Juju, and 2 drives for. I assumed that was gamesmanship. Like, oh, why would you give the third string quarterback 2 drives? And now he's the guy, Jay.
Prime won't admit to it. I feel like it's gamesmanship that he's not going to say who the starting quarterback is, but at the same time, I kind of get where what he's doing is that it feels like he deserved it. He outplayed everyone in practice. He's outplaying everybody in that game. I mean, truth be told, when you watch the game, he was pushing the ball downfield. And to me, with the wide receiver room that Coach Phillips has produced there at Colorado and what we saw, I mean, heck, they had 3 wide receivers drafted in the NFL draft last year, most of anybody in college football, and they had a 4th one signed. Yeah, I need to see if he's able to replace that. Why aren't we using it? And it's nothing against like either Caden Salter. I mean, Juju Lewis is a 5-star, but he's a true freshman. You kind of want to be careful with playing true freshmen in certain games. I mean, unless I guess you could say Bryce Underwood, who they consider the greatest true freshman to ever play the game of football. And I think that's still hilarious in my account, even though I think he's going to be really good. But I mean, the greatest, let's pump the brakes there. But I know Juju's going to be good long term. He's one that kind of needs to take his time, learn, really get adjusted, and then get comfortable with pushing the ball. Ryan was doing that in that Delaware game. You saw him step up and he was launching it. My only issue I ever had with Caden Salter in the first couple of games is not only not pushing the ball upfield, but dude, run. You're a dual threat. Mm-hmm. You were for 1,000 yards at Liberty, bro. We know you've got the wheels. We know you got the agility and movement. And I feel like for Colorado, this change is kind of one of those wake-up calls to the other guys in the room of, hey, if you go out there and you cook, you're going to get a chance. But I'm curious to see if it actually happens that way. That's really where I'm more curious than anything.
Well, and so I guess that's you mentioned like Caden Salter wasn't running like you thought he would. Is that really is that a function of he's in a new offense and wasn't comfortable? Because I fully expected to turn on the Georgia Tech game and see 2 running quarterbacks going back and forth and a fairly fast game with the clock running the whole time. And that was not what Colorado was down for.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm at. My mindset of I thought there was going to be 2 running quarterbacks in that entire game, but we obviously did not get we did not get that at all, unfortunately, which kind of upset me more than anything. I was really, 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 really hoping to get a bunch of run, but I think in time it will, and I think that Ryan Staub's going to give this team a good chance to really compete against that really good, Houston defense that have shown so far. Like I said, it's early, both teams. We don't know really to me, it takes about 4 weeks to figure out what a team is. And then at that point, you'll know what you're working with. So if you think you know football, you think you got the knowledge, check out the Sleeper app. They've got some cool stuff in daily fantasy football that if you got the knowledge, you can definitely show it off. Let me tell you what I mean. Like, for example, tonight, I'm going to check on this Jalen Daniels. Right now, there's a promo going on for a player. You get him for half a passing yard. Oh, he's definitely going to get at least 1 completion, so you can take him. We'll toss him together with a little bit of some Jordan Love. He's a promo as well, so if you're more of a Jordan Love guy, you can take him as well. But there's a lot of popular games, so I'm looking at him. I'm going to look at Micah Parsons. I don't think he gets a sack, so we're going to take that less. So basically what you do is you pick 2 or more players, and you pick more or less on their stats, passing yards, sacks, receiving yards. And from there, if you win, you can make up to 10 times your money if your pick wins. Can't beat that, right? So make sure you check out Sleeper, download the app, use our promo code PRIMETIME, and you'll get a 100% match up to your first $100 deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. We are talking with Parker here from Locked On Cougs. Thank you again for pulling up. Hit the like, subscribe button on both channels. Go show them some love. watch the and listen to him discuss, all the key points for the Houston Cougars in this game, and come over and check it out over to the primetime college football, hearing about Colorado and what they've got brewing for this game. So we talked a little bit about injury reports, and you mentioned about the running back room. So now that two are out, Dean Connor's the main guy. Who else is there another running back that we should know that exists on this roster?
So Stacy Sneed is the kind of one of the last COVID guys. He's a 6-year guy.
Oh, wow.
And he's been at Houston the whole time, been through the coaching change. He really is a pass catching guy at his best. I argued a couple years ago in the Holgerson offense to move him to slot, right? Like he really has pretty good hands. He's not a very strong or not very filled out guy. He will throw his body in a hole though, man. And he'll just full speed and it's worked against Rice and it's worked against Stephen F. Austin. He's done okay in both those games. I'd imagine against Colorado with a little bit stouter front, he's probably more useful in the flat, right? Dumping it out there, but he is useful out there. And so, as much as that might be a tell or a giveaway, and so you don't want to do that unless it's 3rd and long and they're going to pass anyway. I do think you'll see him some. They've played underclassmen that just weren't very healthy. I wouldn't have considered in the rotation. They've played those guys in these first couple games because it's Rice and Stephen of Austin. I wouldn't count on DJ Butler getting a lot of run in this one or anything like that. I think it's going to be the Dean Connor show first and foremost. And then you mentioned Wegman to start the show here. He's got more wiggle to him than people realize. We talk about deceptive stuff.
He is deceptively fast. That is a very good point. I remember watching Connor Weigman play his ball at Texas A&M, and he had a little bit of wiggle to him. Now, he didn't give you very many yards, but he could get out of situations. That's what he was pretty solid at when healthy. It was, you wanted to see more of him in the pass game. 23, I thought that was going to be the year, and it just didn't kind of, happen for the young man. But yeah, he's got something, and I'm intrigued to see what his trajectory looks like going forward this season, because he is really throwing a 65% completion percentage. That's the second best for him in his career, but he's also continuing no picks and 7.5 yards a pass. He's playing some good football right now.
He's hitting the check downs. He's sitting underneath stuff, and he's doing that again because he's not. He's why worry about airing it out? You're going to do fine if you're playing against Rice Stephen Voss without taking a whole bunch of risks. Right. He does have a gigantic safety blanket in Tanner Kozel, the transfer tight end, who sticks out. I mean, he's listed 6'7", 240. Jay, if you told me he was 6'8", 250, I'd believe he's a giant. He just doesn't. He looks different out there, right? And gigantic catch radius. He leads the team in catches. And I've been telling people, whoever listen, he is a pro. Maybe not because he's exceeding. I mean, he is talented, but he might not be Rob Gronkowski or anything. But there just aren't that many guys that are that big that can also catch a football, right? They're just going to give him a chance. And I really think he's a high draft pick for Houston. And he chose to transfer to Houston after a brief stint at Wisconsin, just spring ball at Wisconsin.
Yep.
Was at Ball State the last few years and had 94 catches last year.
He was under demand. He was on demand. Everybody was trying to go after him when he hit the transfer portal from Ball State.
And I think that it's interesting that he was one of those guys that opted to come to Houston to play with Connor. And a handful of these smaller school receivers besides him, right? USF and Louisiana, guys that, were looking to also get to the Power Four, for being blunt. I wanted to come play with Connor, but Tanner could have stayed at Wisconsin. He probably would have had to block a lot more at Wisconsin. But he could have stayed at Wisconsin and played Big Ten football, and he chose to come to Houston. And I think that says a lot about what people in the know think of Connor, and certainly wanted to come play with him in that regard. So they've got a connection. Amari Thomas is a receiver with a connection too. He caught a couple nice balls in the SFA game. And Boogie Johnson, who was their best receiver last year, only has one catch for a 70-yard touchdown, but it was a 70-yard touchdown. It was pretty nice to see. Yeah. So we're hoping to get a few more of those, to say the least.
Yeah, one catch, 74 yards is nice. It's very nice to look at the number and be like, oh, man, I'm averaging 74 yards per catch. It means one catch and it's a touchdown. Yeah. But, hey, don't matter. The question is what more can you get out of Johnson for the rest of the season? And so I'm intrigued to see, because was he at Houston this entire? No, he transferred in from Oklahoma State. Okay, but he's been in Houston for the last few years, so he's been there during the coaching change too, right?
Yeah, so he was a transfer in Holgerson's. His first year at Houston was Holgerson's last year. He
Yeah.
stayed through the transfer, or stayed through the coaching change. And frankly, in the coaching change, you lost Sam Brown to Miami, Matt Golden to Texas, and I think people kind of assumed you're going to lose Boogie, Stephon Boogie Johnson, and I think people kind of assumed he was going to be out the door too, and he didn't, and he ended up being the number one receiver at Houston last year because he didn't leave. And there's something to be said about being the best receiver at the school you're at, right?
Yeah, it is.
Obviously, Matt Golden did fine for himself. I'm not saying he made a bad decision. It would have been nice to have to do it in red, but I think that it's worked out for Stephon so far. I hope he catches a few more 70-yard touchdowns this season to make it really work out. But I've liked having him around so far. I'm glad he stayed.
That's good. That's good. Okay, so all right. With this injury report, you got 4 wide receivers on here, as you mentioned. Really, the only one that you feel like is a big name player. What's your final prediction for this game? How do you think the Cougs finish in this one? Right now, it appears that you all are, was this 3.5-point favorites on FanDuel?
It's been moving up and down a little bit this week. It's been 3.5, 4.5, somewhere in there. I've been looking at Houston with playing at home is going to be in the mid 90s and crazy humid. Houston is going to be crazy humid.
Yeah. I've been to Houston in September. I went to a wedding and I got attacked by like 1,000 mosquitoes. It was terrible. It was the worst experience of my life. Never again.
And to be fair, on the inverse of this, if they were playing in the mountains with the thin air, it'd probably also be some home field advantage in that way.
Fair point.
I think Houston wins this one 24-21 is what I've been saying. Okay. I think it'll come down to like Colorado has the ball late and there's some big defensive stop. It might not be like the last drive of the game, but there'll be some drive somewhere in the last, 5 minutes, somewhere in there that Houston makes a stop that kind of ices it in a lot of ways. I don't think Houston scores at the buzzer to win. I think that's probably not the MO of this team right now, but I do think if it comes down to making a stop, I trust the guys are to make a stop there in the late fourth quarter. And, Colorado's finding a lot out about themselves. I'm sure you've heard this a lot, so I'm not saying, but like, I like playing them in week 3 a lot more than playing them in week 9. They're going to be a lot better in week 9. Let's get them now. That's where I'm at. But you're probably flipping that on me. You probably think it's a close game the other way, maybe, kind of, sort of.
Yeah, I actually do. I'm actually in the same boat. I'm thinking 23-20. I think Colorado can squeak it out. I think that injury bug for y'all at running back to me is kind of terrifying. That because I feel like a strong run game helps Connor Weigman the most. I think that was when you saw the most success out of him at Texas A&M's, when they had a really good run game to go along with his pass. If you're making him do all of the passing by himself with some wide receivers out and your running backs out, you become one dimensional. It's kind of easy to figure it out, and I think that that's actually Colorado's strength is their pass defense. Because that's exactly what Georgia Tech did to beat them, was they just ran it the entire time. Hayes King didn't really pass the ball. He ran the ball a lot. And to me, if you have a strong run game, you probably have an advantage on Colorado right now while they're figuring out that interior and figuring out that defense. But if I think you have to pass, I think that their defense their secondary is built for that. Linebacker room is improving. They're learning. Martavius French is learning at being the Mike. So I'd say 23-20. I don't think the over-under is set at 44.5 over there on FanDuel. I think they hit just under it. You have them at over at 45 points.
Barely.
I have them under at 43 points combined. So we're close. It's probably going to be right there in the middle at 44, and we don't know which direction it goes. But I think it's going to be a good game. I actually think this one will be a good game, and you're right. I think Colorado will be better later on in the season. I think Houston as well once you all get healthy. That's usually the biggest thing. So, Parker, let the people know where they can find you.
Locked on Cougs every single day. All things Houston Cougars. Obviously, basketball is a big thing for the University of Houston too. We go all the way through, but it is football season. It's Big 12 football season.
Yes, it is.
Willie Fritz era is alive and strong, so we're hitting it every day. And then also on social media stuff at Painsworth, Parker Ainsworth, Painsworth 512, all your social media handles. I get annoying on that, so I say follow at your own discretion, but I talk a lot about Houston on that thing. So
he does talk a lot about Houston. I've been following him on my personal account for a while, and so yeah, he does a lot of Houston talk, which is nothing wrong with that. You can definitely do that. All right, we appreciate you guys checking us out here on the Prime Time for College Football, as well as Locked On Cougs. Check us out, follow on the socials, and yeah, we will talk soon. If you think you know football, you think you got the knowledge, check out the Sleeper app. They've got some cool stuff in daily fantasy football that if you got the knowledge, you can definitely show it off. Let me tell you what I mean. Like, for example, tonight, I'm going to take on this Jalen Daniels. Right now, there's a promo going on for a player. You get him for half a passing yard. Oh, he's definitely going to get at least one completion, so you can take him. We'll toss him together with a little bit of some Jordan Love. He's a promo as well, so if you're more of a Jordan Love guy, you can take him as well. But there's a lot of popular games, so I'm looking at him. I'm going to look at Micah Parsons. I don't think he gets a sack, so we're going to take that less. So basically what you do is you pick 2 or more players, and you pick more or less on their stats, passing yards, sacks, receiving yards. And from there, if you win, you can make up to 10 times your money if your pick wins. Can't beat that, right? So make sure you check out Sleeper, download the app, use our promo code PRIMETIME, and you'll get a 100% match up to your first $100 deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details.